All right. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 4:04 p.m. And I'm happy to take minutes at this one. Would love it if somebody else wants to in a future meeting, but I'll be happy to take it for the first time. Our first order of business is to elect a chairman, and I am willing to do that task. But I also want to make sure that if anybody else would like to step up to do that, we can do a quick election. Anybody interested?
I'm supportive of you.
Okay.
Me too.
Everybody else okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, super. Okay. So actually we should do, I'll entertain a motion because we should make it official.
Oh, I make a motion to elect Lynn as chair of the broadband committee.
Okay. Second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Unanimous. Okay. All right. So I thought it might make sense for us to quickly go around and do an introduction of ourselves, just so everybody knows interest and maybe even a little bit of background as to what you're bringing to this committee. I'll start. I'm a selectman on the Board of Selectmen, and I've lived here in Kent for over 30 years. Done a lot of different things, been a reporter, been a longtime member of the faculty at South Kent School. And during my time at South Kent, I was technology coordinator for a couple of years. I've always been somebody who likes to make use of technology to improve my work environment. So that was part of my driving focus for wanting to be part of this group. And I also think it's important for the town to be making sure everybody has access. So that is one of my big things of why I wanted to be part of this. So I'll pass this over to Sarah.
I am Sarah Marshall. I'm the director of the library. We have been working on digital, what we're calling digital navigation through the regional libraries for a couple of years now. Sharon, Connecticut has made incredible strides to connect their people. I think it became very clear during COVID that we didn't have great connectivity in the town, and there were people that were really left out in that they couldn't really function because they didn't have strong enough connections to the digital world. So we serve everybody in town. We have, computers and good strong Wi-Fi here at the library, but it would be helpful to be able to have that everywhere in the town. I've lived here since 1995. I guess I should say my husband is also a selectman. I don't know if that matters. I'm not going to tell you who I voted. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but he is a selectman. But I'm doing this under the auspices of the library, not because I'm necessarily. Yeah, that's why. Because I'm a library lady.
Okay, cool.
That's all.
Jonathan, would you like to go next?
Sure. I don't think I know really anyone on this call. I've actually been living in Kent since 2007, very stealthily. My wife and I have a house on Chippewa Road, which is behind Massena Brook Park. I mention that because we're about as remote as you can be in the town of Kent. My wife, in fact, has a small office in Sharon, in part because of our remote nature of our house. So since 2007, I've gone through 3 satellite providers, 1 broadband Wi-Fi provider or home networking provider. We have no cell service. But more important to this task, we do have the means to try and solve that problem. A lot of people do not. But I have some expertise in broadband and wireless technology. In fact, I used to run a TCP/IP global network for British Telecom. I then worked for a big technology company focused on broadband and wireless technologies. And then as a consultant in that world, that's not where I work anymore, but various people in town thought that my subject matter expertise, and because I've looked at business cases for the deployment of these technologies, that it might be useful to have someone on board who has some background in that experience. And as Sarah said, I think that it's become a necessity to all citizens to have viable broadband. And by that, I mean something that is affordable, easy to access, with the appropriate speed and connectivity to access all the services, such as what we're doing right now.
Excellent. Caleb, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks. Great to meet you. I've met some of you. I've been here living with my wife since COVID. We're COVID people from New York City via California. We've owned the house for a few more years than COVID, but we've lived here since COVID. My background, I always have tinkered with technology. I've set up networks and everything, and currently I'm the chief auditor for technology at Visa, the credit card company. So I have hands involved with a number of aspects of technology. We have great internet service through Spectrum. The price has shot up through the roof. So this is something that I think probably because it's the only real sort of viable provider. So that's something that, happy to help where I can and figure out, like, how do we make sure people, especially in the town of Kent, have access to other options as opposed to sort of one really expensive service. So that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you. Rick.
I've lived in town my whole life. It's a little bit of time on and off, like 6 months at a time out of town. But so Lynn asked me to be on because I pretty much know like where everything is in town, with maybe every telephone pole or every house. But and also with my work being the road foreman, there's a lot of spots in town where I can't communicate with between cellular or even Wi-Fi with an iPad or whatever. So it'd be nice to be able to drive around and be able to do everything instead of having to drive down the road 3 miles while you're trying to do work in one area. So
Yeah.
the more we can get pushed out there, the better. I know
Yeah.
you Jonathan from the transfer station, so you can't
Yeah,
say
Rick and I do know each other, and he
Mhm.
has rescued me. He's rescued my poor road at Chippewa a few times.
All right. Well, thank you all. Now we have Eric Roper is also on our committee, and Ken Cooper, and both were not able to join us today. So hopefully they'll be able to be on the next one.
Is Steve on here too?
And Steve Penner, yes,
Okay.
Steve Penner as well. So we have 8 people total, so we have to have 5 people to have a meeting. So the selectman actually suggested, maybe you want to have alternates. And I was like, no, we don't need alternates, but we might need alternates. So we do have a couple of people that we didn't name to the committee, so I may reach out to them and see if they're interested in being an alternate. Because this was more challenging than I thought it would be to get our first meeting together. Okay, so I don't think we have anybody here. I am going to have public comment in case people want to talk, but I don't think we have anybody here right now. So, nope. So we will skip over that. But the committee's establishment and charge, I just wanted to go through the charge, make sure we're all, I sent it to you guys, but just to make sure you're familiar. There was a broadband group that existed before. Both Eric and Ken were on that group. So we disbanded that group, and then we reconstituted it as with a new name, even adding in the mobile communications. So if we can deal with some cell stuff, because that was not part of the original charge. And basically it says to explore options and costs to bring adequate and competitive broadband to all residents in town. Take actions to apply for BEAD funding. We won't actually be the one applying, but we are going to do all the work to make that happen. And the BEAD funding is federal money. Stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. And as a secondary priority, explore options to improve reliability and access to cell service and make recommendations on these subjects to the Board of Selectmen. So we are a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen, as I mentioned in the email. So I was able to secure us a little bit of money, $800 through the rest of this fiscal year. And I didn't want to go ahead and ask for more money, but unfortunately the selectmen just approved the budget today. So now we'll have to go, if we figure out that we want to spend more money, we're gonna have to go to the Board of Finance. And the reason why I asked for that money was Ken and I were speaking with Rich Welsh, who is another person, maybe much like you, Caleb and Jonathan, who actually has a lot of knowledge about this. I'm not going to claim to know a lot about it, but he suggested that we my thing, because I don't want to misspeak. That we could do an automated survey that would capture somebody's speed, upload, download speed, because that's one of the big tasks that has to get done for people who are underserved or unserved. That's terminology which I'm still learning. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
share my screen so you guys can see this. I did put this in our shared folder. Oh, come on. And so I put together some links and documents, but the one thing I definitely wanted to talk about was the BEAD program, which is the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is the one that's coordinating this for the state of Connecticut. And I've been to a couple of different webinars on this, and they just had one on Friday, and this timeline is kind of important for us to be talking about right away, because they're going to let's see if I can get rid of this. They're going to be opening up the ability to challenge what they call the challenge portal very soon, like within days. And basically there is a FCC map that says which properties in town are what's called served or underserved. And that terminology, I can't have this open at the same time. Sorry, I've had like way too many Board of Selectmen meetings, and I'm not as prepared for this meeting as I was hoping to be. We've had 3 2-hour meetings in the last 3 days, so. So the terminology, unserved means it's 25 megabits per second over 3 megabits per second. So you tech guys are gonna make
Yeah.
sure I get this right.
First number is telling you how fast you get information into your home, and the second is how fast you can get information out of your home back to the network.
Right. So upload and download speeds.
Yes.
So unserved is that number, and then underserved is not reaching 100 over 20. So the BEAD program will help people in either one of those categories. But we have to look at compare the maps to the FCC map and to the locations and see and get people to submit if they are not getting those kind of speeds, which many people are not going to. The tricky part is that the residents themselves have to do the speed tests, and they have to do at least 3 and at different times and days, and they have to be submitted within 60 days of the date of the screenshot. And basically, we would have 30 days once they open the portal to get all this information to the state's challenge portal for all these different addresses. So it's very, very, it's a big challenge that we have. But it could mean, many, many, thousands of dollars if we can make it work.
So Lynn, may I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
So just help me understand. You're saying that there exists a map by the FCC that has every residence and business, or every residence?
Yeah, it's everything.
Okay, it has every residence and business in the town of Kent. It should say what they think the upload and download speeds are. And what we have to do is, if we have any areas that look like they're not being served, you want us, I'm guessing, or somehow we will be reaching out to these people and asking them to do speed tests.
Right. That's the part. Rich was working with Ken and I about trying to figure out the mechanics of how to make that happen automatically. And so he gave me some links, which I can definitely open up and share with you guys, because I'm sure these tech folks will be able to make sense of this better than I can. And I will send this, I will include this in the.
Hey, Sarah, just a point of clarification for you, and I did not look at the map, but I have looked at these maps historically. They actually, just to be clear, the FCC is not providing, for example, at your home, a speed that they have tested. What they provide is coverage where they say these service providers provide these types of services to your address, and these are the service levels that they say they provide. You may not actually be able to get service at your address from all those service providers. And if you do, your service may not be as good, but they use a coverage map provided to them by these various service providers. So it's distinct from if you went home and tested your service, you'd know what service you're using, but you'd also be able to test the actual speeds and latencies. They're using information provided to them by licensed service providers, I believe. I haven't looked at the map recently.
Yeah, that's it. And the state of Connecticut is contracted with this company to label them either unserved, underserved, or served. So, but they haven't opened that portal, so I can't show that to you yet. So, that's going to happen, like I said, with this month. So Rich came up with this. He was going to propose that we could put something onto the town's website to be able to do a survey that would automatically do a speed test for people.
Mm-hmm.
So he unfortunately didn't choose to send in an email to join this thing. So I'm hoping that I'll get him on another call and he'll be able to explain a little bit better, because I don't actually understand everything.
Sure.
But that was the idea. So once the challenge phase starts, which they anticipate is going to be in March, it's open for 30 days, this portal, the ability to challenge the fact of whether or not you're served, underserved. And then it closes. So we would have to do the work within that 30 days. And then the service providers have a rebuttal phase where they can say, hey, that address is served. And then there's a final determination phase. And then, so you can see from this, there are different types of challenges. It can be, I'm not sure if I got the right screenshot on this one. But basically speed can be one. And the speed is going to be a big one for us. And then if there is no service at all to a location, then there are other categories. And I'm sorry, once again, I apologize. I'm going to stop sharing because I don't think this is the right thing. But I did want to, I did put this in our shared folder, so there is information here about the overall broadband page. There's a link here to the deep BEAD funding, which has everything. It's very, it's a lot of detail, but here's like the terminology that I was trying to remember. And then they have to give all this stuff because the federal government is governing what they have to do, and there's description of the challenge process and stuff like that. But what we really need to, our first priority has to be identifying places that, people that and businesses that don't have service and don't have fast enough service. Because this is our opportunity to get this money. And so part of the reason why I wanted Sarah involved is because I figured you would know people that actually didn't have, computer access or that kind of thing. And I would hope that we would also, reach out to Kent Center School and the social services and find out, where are these people that do not have connectivity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why someone may not be connected. And sometimes it's, they don't have the hardware. Sometimes they have the hardware. They don't know how to use it. Sometimes they don't have like the wiring that goes into their house because they live on Chippewa Lane or whatever. It's just, there's a million reasons why someone doesn't have digital access. We're trying to follow up with all of them kind of simultaneously, like with training and with sharing hardware and, but we can't do anything about like phone lines. You know what I mean? So I can give someone a computer, but if they don't have a place to plug it in, it's no good to anybody. So I really don't have information about that. I would probably reach out to social services first.
Mhm.
That's because it's not like I keep a list of who can't access things. I have a lot of people that come in here and use our stuff, use our computers and use our Wi-Fi because A, it's fast, and B, if they need help, we can help them. And C, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but printers are terrible, that the ones that you have at your house, and their ink is always half rotten. So if people don't print a lot, their printers don't work because they get all stuck. So we have a lot of people who come in and just print all the time off their phone or off a thumb drive or something like that. So that's sort of what we see.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily have anybody who comes in and they're like, I have a lot of people who are like, I don't have self-service, but I don't have like a running list of either of those groups.
Okay.
Lynn, a quick
I have
question.
a question.
Go ahead.
So sorry, and I apologize for not having done a ton of research on all the details of what the links you've shared, but our objective, and that's maybe I'm just a little confused. So we are looking to find, actually maybe take a step back. So I think it's like $80 a month it's pretty good service, but it seems like it's a lot. And so my household wouldn't be one of the ones we're counting because we have plenty of access. If somebody down the street doesn't pay $80 a month, they don't have the same access. Is that what we're trying to identify, is who doesn't have the speed or doesn't have multiple providers? And then when we do identify folks who are underserved or underprovided and we're getting money, what is that money to do? Is it to run wires, or is it to force service providers to provide stuff, or is it to set up like a mesh network, or what is it that we are actually trying to do?
Yeah, it is like if a service provider says, well, that location has access, and we can prove, basically the challenge process is proving no, they don't have access. It's somebody, a lot of times on my understanding is people who have long driveways, the providers are not willing to actually bring the service to them because they have a long driveway. And obviously with a lot of people around here, that's pretty common. So, so it's a process of sort of proving that, well, they may be saying there's service at at address, but they actually are not providing service because
Because they won't run the wires from
Mhm.
from the main road to the
Mhm.
person's home.
exactly.
And that's what we're
And
gonna
then
be
in
able to
that
get funding
scenario-
for?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's basically what I was asking. So if we
Yeah.
prove that, got a long driveway, you're not sending the wire, what would the funding do?
Yeah, it would get them service. It would basically, because the federal legislation says everybody gets to have service at a minimum level.
Oh.
And so maybe just like exploring further. So Jonathan, you're remote, but you've got access to like satellite access. So
Yeah, you and I
theoretically,
are on you and I
have
are on the
service.
same page. Yeah, so I mean, there's a difference between capability and affordability as example. So I have used 3 different I currently, again, full disclosure, we're family here. I have 2 services. That's how important. So I have Starlink. Put Mr. Musk's politics behind you for the moment, and I have T-Mobile home wireless service. They call it home wireless service, but it's a 5G router. 5G is a wireless technology. It's coming off the cell tower at next to Rick's backyard there, which, by the way, I'm technically getting off-piste. In other words, I used a different address to get the service. I'm being fully disclosure with you guys here because I needed service. So I had to literally get it sent to somewhere else to get that service. You're giving a perfect example. The Starlink service is $90 a month. It doesn't work very well for me because you need a certain apogee, meaning an angle to the satellites that serve you. And we're up in the middle of the Macedonia Brook Park, so a lot of it's cut off by trees. I pay for it because it's only one of the 2 options I have. Similar to the T-Mobile service, it's better than most, but I'm getting anywhere from 10 to 12 megs and about 3 megs up. So I'd be, by this definition, underserved. But it doesn't take into consideration, as you were saying, cost. I'm paying literally $140 a month for 2 different broadband services, still getting mediocre service, but it's so important to me and I have the resources to do it, that I do it. So I might show up as underserved. We're going to find that every house in Kent can get satellite service. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. They can't afford it necessarily. You got to pay $400, $500 for a dish, $90 to $120 a month. But it's available. It's just not affordable. It's not practical. That'd be my assertion.
The legislation does not deal with satellite. It also,
Oh,
yeah, it's all about wired service for the most part.
oh, that's new. Okay, so that's very big news. So I'm not covered. I am your example. There is no, Rick can tell you there ain't nothing up at Chippewa Road other than bears.
Now there was, at the last webinar that I went to, there was some discussion about like AT&T providing, I don't quite understand that, because I understood that cell service was also not covered by this, but there was something that was brought out, and I'm not sure if I misunderstood it or but I think it's only about wired service.
Yeah, many of the service providers like T-Mobile and Verizon, in theory, are moving to a more cost-effective service mode for them, which is instead of laying fiber optic cables and what is necessary to provide DSL or similar service to your home, they're using the latest data cell technology, 5G, if you would, to provide you a home modem, just like you would have for the Spectrum coax terrestrial service, and using it via a cell 5G service. So that, to me, would be an ideal opportunity for Kent, in theory, just because of the pervasiveness of the service. But that's a very important point. If it's wire line service, fixed ground service, there's a lot of people in Kent who are not served. A lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. So I will certainly read up on, any information I can on what we're trying to prove. But that's one of the things that, depending on what test, I think you said the gentleman's name was Rick, was suggesting, sometimes it will identify who the service provider is, which will want that piece of information, because some people will be testing over satellite or over wireless, or which is not even part of the.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be careful about educating people. Yeah. So, so So yeah, that I covered the basics, and I will make sure that I was hoping that Deep would have the presentation that they did. But unfortunately they just put up the recording, which is not as easy to flip through quickly. Because it was like an hour-long webinar. But I think the first step is to get a survey out, and I will reach out to Rich Welsh and find out the specific steps that need to happen. And find out if this, because I was a little thrown off when I realized that they were going to ask for 3 screenshots. I was like, oh, I was thinking it was just going to be 1 screenshot, and they need to be done at like different times of the day. And it's like, wow, that's asking a lot. So that's like our first step, I think. And then we need to, once the challenge portal opens, we need to be able to maneuver through that and submit ones that people, it's gonna require, some education to the residents so they understand how important this is and why they should bother to do screenshots and stuff like that of their upload and download speeds.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So let's just say Joe Schmo, who lives off of 341 on some long driveway, there are cables that run up 341. If he wanted to pay the money to run that cable himself, he could have some sort of plug-in, internet through at his home. But let's say the person that lives there, and so we identify them as someone who is not provided adequate service.
Mhm.
But so does that person then have an obligation to actually pay for service? Like if we
No.
can, okay, so if we say that, hey, people who own the lines, whoever they are, whoever's going to run the line to their house, how does that work? I mean, does that force the person who lives there to have to pay for this in any way?
No, the internet service provider, if they say that they're providing that service, they have to provide it. And if they're in a location where they should be providing it, there's if I'm remembering correctly, they and say somebody makes a claim and says, well, you are saying that you're providing service in this area, and I want it provided. And then they have like 10 days to do it. And if they don't do it within 10 days, then the person has more ammunition that they've tried, and they haven't provided it. So that's the other category other than speed, where Kent residents are going to be able to take part of that as another category of saying, I'm not getting service and I'm supposed to be getting service.
Hmm.
And that's what the town of Sharon has been working so hard on.
Right.
And they worked with internet service provider Comcast, and this was before the federal funding was available. So they
Right.
actually paid a town bond to be able to start working with Comcast to run wires to these people that have no access.
Lynn, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but does the selectman office or the town have contact? I mean, to my knowledge, we have Spectrum, and I think Frontier may offer DSL in town. I don't know. I mean, I don't know who all the wireline terrestrial service providers are, but there certainly are many areas in Kent that aren't served by either of those players. I mean, that's for certain. Now, they may
Yep.
not be obligated to, but is there a list, or does the town know who's is claiming they're providing service, or we can get, it probably will be on the FCC map, I'm imagining, but
Rick, do you know? I know Charter's like the main one, like Comcast doesn't serve.
Whatever they're calling themselves.
Yeah.
Frontier right now is running fiber throughout most of the town.
okay.
So they're going to be offering a new program, from what I heard, like a year ago. But that's still not going to hit every area in town. I think it's the only other thing I was going to ask Lynn also, from the webinars that you've attended, so this is just gonna be to say wire each house. It's not like to set up the mesh system or anything like that, or a grid system so that we have it everywhere. It's just for individuals.
That's my understanding. What would be the mesh or the grid system?
Well, like with the cellular, sometimes they can put a transmitter on various telephone poles around so that it bounces the signal around, and you can get to areas where there's no tower and get a signal. I think that
It's-
would be the same with Wi-Fi. So
It's really not about cell. This particular program is not about cell.
well, if they stick a bunch of routers around town and let us all have access to them, we're all set. But
It will, I mean, Rick's raising a big point. I remember when I moved into Kent, I was a little unpopular with the people who were anti-cell tower at the transfer station. I apologize if one of you were one of those people. And my main argument for having it was emergency services and people like Rick having access when they need it. Broadband to the home will help us with cellular, and that you can always extend a cellular network through the terrestrial IP network, but it won't help Rick, who could be right next to my house on Chippewa Road with his phone. That's a bigger challenge we have here, given our terrain and the distance between towers and the like.
I know.
My house is actually, my cellular service comes from Amenia, believe it or not from
Wow.
Kent. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people followed the Richards Road cell tower process of going through the state of Connecticut regulatory stuff, but I mean, that was really disappointing to me to see how they just were like, nope, this is the application we have, this is what we're going with. They didn't want to listen to any other innovative ideas. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to have the cell stuff tagged on to our committee, because I wanted to see what was possible. Because right now it's set up with the state of Connecticut that, you know, a provider like AT&T proposes a tower and they review the proposal and then they decide yes or no. And that's pretty much, there's no real outreach to say, what about doing it a different way? And so.
Yeah.
It's a little disheartening. The goal of this program, the BEAD funding, is to get 100% to deal with the underserved, to have 100% of the underserved to be served. So that is the goal, which is, but they certainly are not giving us a lot of time to deal with this. I mean, to be fair, they have been working on it a while, but they also, the way the feds structured it, it was like the states had to do certain reports and stuff like that. But this is the first real time when residents and property owners can say, hey, you're not, you know, I'm not meeting this minimum level. So.
I think the definition of what underserved means by this program's definition is going to be very, very important, given all the things we've discussed. Because if it truly is fixed line, grounds terrestrial service, then there's going to be a lot of people in Kent who are under or non-served. If it does include other services, then it's a whole other discussion.
When you look at the map, it's like Northwest Connecticut is like all of the colors of people that need help. It's like Northwest Connecticut and Northeast Connecticut. Everybody else is, I mean, there are going to be pockets, but we are in a bad spot because of all these long driveways and.
Well, it's a population density issue.
Yeah.
And the business cases for broadband deployment or cellular is very much predicated on density and utilization of the infrastructure that's get put in. And we're just, even though we might feel we're crowded in Kent, it's not a very densely populated area.
Right. So do you guys feel like, I mean, I know I didn't do the best job of explaining everything, but I would encourage you to take a look at those websites by Deep. And I know it's a little overwhelming, but especially those of you who have the technical knowledge to be able to understand what they're talking about. There is the one thing we do need to understand and take action on is they were talking about these 2 tiers of licenses. And as a local government, we could get a tier E license, and that would allow us to, I don't think there's a cost, but it's like the benefit of having this license is to be able to match up the locations with the actual address, is the way I understand it. Because in the federal government's indelible wisdom, their map does not actually give addresses. So yeah, they have street names and they have, cross streets and stuff like that, but I don't quite understand, but maybe it's some kind of a privacy thing. I don't know. But that was one thing that I think we need to decide whether or not we're going to apply for this license, and we'll have to do that if we think it's the right thing to do.
May I ask a question about the survey?
Uh-huh.
How do we plan to disseminate that?
Well,
we need a car driving around to everyone's house?
well, I mean, we can definitely send it out through the first selectman's email, but we probably should be doing like a postcard or something to be able to reach every household in Kent.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, the whole point is if they don't have access, we can't be putting the survey online.
Right. Yeah. But and the trick is to figure out how many people are that are like that. So we are definitely gonna probably have to do a postcard. And the hope is that somebody would be able to do, even if they didn't have broadband, they could still fill out the survey and let us know, using cell or something like that. But it definitely would be a problem of getting the speed tests.
Does it make sense to contact the working group up in Sharon that did this?
They have not done this. They've done surveys, but they have not, because all this information about what's required for this funding is just literally has just come out within the last couple of months. So,
well, but just how they found out where it was needed. I mean, I feel like that's.
I mean, we certainly could, and Jill Drew and Megan.
Yes.
Are the co-chairs, and I met with them and they're very willing to help, give advice and stuff like that. So yes, definitely.
So is the next step sort of what the postcard needs to say? And do you have wired service?
Yeah.
I guess we should make sure that we are talking about wired service.
Yeah.
Do you or don't you? And if you do, would you be able to get screen, like what's your speed, something like that?
Yeah, right.
And then once we've got the smaller list of people who do not have wired service or have low speed, then we can take a next step. Is that what we're saying?
I think, it's like simultaneously we've got to get a hold of people, that, like we started off talking about, if there's anybody that the library knows in Kent Center School and the social services, we need to do outreach to those folks and let them know this is what you need to do. You need to give us X, Y, and Z. And then we need to create a postcard and get it out there and have a website where people, do it, Survey Monkey or something else. That I'm sorry that I didn't get a hold of Rich and get him so he could explain it better, but I will definitely talk to him and then I'll get back to you guys with better explanation of what his idea was to capture the upload and download speeds, because he made it sound like it could be done automatically, which would be amazing.
May I ask a dumb question about the connectivity? Maybe this is a good one for Jonathan. So, if you wanted to have quote unquote cable TV, could you?
No. So the coax infrastructure that is used to deliver Spectrum's broadband at home and cable, while homes will have two different modems. In other words, one that's handling the codec service that gives you all your wonderful blurry cable service and your broadband. It is transversing essentially similar ducts. There are some different equipment at the head end and the like, but most people who are served by cable will also have the option of cable broadband.
Right,
It's
that's
very
sort
rare.
of what I was asking.
There are in modern, I'll call it in modern infrastructure in a place like Kent. Yes, there are places in rural, I'm in Eastern Washington a lot, which is where I am right now, state. I have a business out here too. There are places out here where you can get the old coax cable and there's no cable broadband, but it's very rare, very rare. So you will find a coincidence of common lack of service. And I do think, and when Lynn sends, I know she sent some information, but if she sends a webinar, I will try and get a definitional understanding of what this program thinks they're testing against, because I think we're going to have one group of people who have no service by the definition of this program, meaning they don't have access to wired line fixed service, terrestrial service. And then you're going to have some people who might have service, but it's not of the quality that the so-called underserved and the like. I'm not going to be surprised if the former is even more important than the latter, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's not because of me. I'm okay. I'm just saying that I'm sure, a lot of people in the town center probably have pretty decent broadband service, I'd imagine.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But like
And
Ken Cooper's in Kent Hollow, and he does
Yeah.
not meet that minimum. He's on Upper Kent Hollow.
And I know Caleb will agree. I can't stress enough how important latency is. Latency is the quickness by which information any delays in terms of the network reacting to a request to do something. Because when we're doing something like Zoom here, or many applications that people work from home with now, whether it be a customer relationship management software, just your accounting software,
Video games.
Yeah, video games. Well, that might not be as critical. I don't have kids, so I'm not so worried. But I certainly sympathize. But that latency, one of the problems we have in modern society is that everything is being built to the assumption that we all have not only high speed access, but low latency. And as soon as you move to satellite, which is often very high latency, even though you have bandwidth throughput, it doesn't work properly. So so I'll use even medical, for example. Now we're all doing these home video medical with these applications where they're trying to provide medical service visually and at a distance. Don't work well with high latency. So, yeah.
Okay.
Fun stuff.
So the next question is, when can we meet again? And like for the five of us on here, is during the day, late afternoon good, or is nighttime good, or what are you? Depends. Okay.
For me, yeah.
I would
I
love
prefer
to.
day if possible.
Okay. I would love to be really short with our meetings, not let them go on for, I don't think we should do, if we can keep it to an hour, I would love it. If we have to go to an hour and a half, that to me would be the max. I don't want to have 2-hour meetings. So, I mean, I can keep doing the doodle polls to figure out what's best each week. I mean, you can tell like we're kind of under the gun right now, but I think I can certainly work on the survey part, and I could come up with a draft and share it with you guys. And especially once I talk to Rich and find out, what he was thinking about originally. And then the process of getting a postcard out and that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, the postcard, that'll eat up half your budget right there.
I know. But I don't know how else you would reach people.
Other than literally driving around and going to people's homes. I agree. There's the whole point of, I can't send it in my newsletter. Everyone who gets my newsletter obviously has access. So, yeah.
But they may have access, like Jonathan was talking about, is they may have
True.
access through cell or satellite and not actually have access through wired.
Sure.
Lynn, when you sat on this webinar, did you get any sense as to the nature of the challenge? In other words, if we have Kent show that we have 300 residents who are unserved or underserved, are we allocated resources, or do we have to poll 100%, 95% of our citizens? Is there any criteria that we have to meet?
I didn't hear anything like that, because I think they're dealing with the individual challenges. There's
okay.
There's nothing. I mean, there was a specific thing about multiple dwellings, which we don't have that many of those here. I mean, I think the condos might be one that would qualify for that. But obviously the big cities have a lot of that. So there's like specific rules for multiple dwellings.
Do we have, Rick would know this, do we have multiple dwellings outside of the village center?
There's a few duplexes around, but nothing not like the
Yeah.
condos, no.
Right.
Rick, do you think that if I went to the assessor, would she be able to like would she know by any chance which locations have wired broadband? Or
I don't think so. I don't see that on any of the line cards when you look at them, so.
okay. Are there locations that you would know where, if you were to look at a map of the town?
We can go around and start disconnecting wires and see who calls up complaining, then who's got it. But,
All right.
I would think that we might be able to get something from Spectrum. But
and by the way, just to be clear, most service providers, and I don't know if this would meet the challenge standard, but you can go online and you can enter your address and they'll tell you whether they serve the address.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I just actually checked on Frontier. I was curious about fiber. They have DSL that covers me. I'm just north of the downtown Kent. But fiber doesn't cover, it looks like, most of Kent. So if they're working on it, they haven't gotten there yet. But I guess, to your point, look at Spectrum's site and they'll tell you whether or not, I don't know if they have maps. Fiber, the Frontier definitely had a map.
So everybody, I mean, distance from the center of town is going to be a key determinant, just because of the nature of the input. So like Dan Murray and everyone behind me in the private no-dine pasture area, they have no service, right? By no service, I mean no terrestrial service. I mean, Kent Hollows, I'm sure, is a good example of an area that might have no service.
Yeah, or spotty. Yeah. I think Chippewa, I bet anything, you're like one of the worst areas in town.
That's
my
why we
guess.
wanted to be there. So we got what we deserve, right? We knew what we were getting ourselves into.
And so that's what we're working on, to pay for his mansion to have internet access.
Yeah, my 2-bedroom man. Yeah, Rick will tell you it's I'm living out the hog up there.
But I mean, I think that the numbers, the underserved, I mean, that 100 over 20, there's a lot of people that aren't going to make that either.
Ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm very surprised that's standard.
yeah. Yeah.
Caleb, are you getting 100 megabit at your house?
It's like over 300. Yeah, no, we're like in town. Basically.
I'll get my popcorn. I'll be over later.
Yeah.
Caleb, are you on Route 7?
Yeah, 120 North Main. You were
Okay.
just
He's your neighbor, Lynn. It's in the old Blackadder place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm at
Blackadder House. That's right.
41 Ken Cornwall Road. So I have pretty fast service too. But it's like Jonathan saying, the people that are on the main thoroughfares are fine.
I mean, this conversation is a little different than the only thing I'm just going to add, which I kill. To me, since cost is being taken out of this, it's really changed, because I mean, there's services available. It's just very expensive. That's
well, and that was kind of my point, is if we're saying, if somebody can't afford it, it's not really available. So $80 a month, it seems like a lot. Great service, but it seems like a lot. And if there's no competition, actually we were in California, we had just as much speed. I think it was $30 a month because there's so much, yeah, we're in the Bay Area, so there's so much competition there. Here, lack of competition, I think bumps up the price, but it sounds like that's not a factor in this.
Well,
I'd be very, sorry, I was gonna say, I'd be
No.
very interested if you entered your home address, Caleb, for the T-Mobile home wire 5G service and see if you're served, because I know some of the businesses in downtown are served. Because that's one form of competition, at least get some pricing dynamic.
Yeah, no, I'll actually, I thought I had looked at it in the past. I'll look at it again, but that would be interesting.
Sarah may know this, but there's another funding source that is actually going through the Office of Policy and Management, and they are focusing on connectivity for low income. And I'm not sure how many of our people would qualify. But it's like a whole other funding thing. So I knew the BEAD funding was going to be a challenge, so.
But that's funding for like individual people to be able to pay their internet bill.
No, it's connectivity for people who can't afford it. But
Okay.
they'd have to be, getting like services through social.
Yeah, they get,
services.
it seems to be have something to connected with like reduced price lunches. Like that's how they.
That's it.
found
Yeah,
the
that
kids
kind
to
of
get
thing.
services.
Yeah. So.
Which is a remarkably high number for Kent, I think it's more than people think. In Kent of kids who actually qualify for a reduced lunch.
Surprising stuff. Yeah.
It's a surprisingly high number.
Yeah. Okay. So I will send out another doodle poll and hopefully we can get 100% attendance. That'd be awesome.
If you would send the link to the webinar, I'll try and watch it because I might
Yep.
learn something. I will certainly try and get through the many pages of the website, but.
Actually, I can put it right in the chat. Would that help?
Here you can, yeah.
And then I will email everybody. It is long though. But and the other thing is you guys may want to sign up for the email from Deep Broadband because they're going to let us know when things are happening. And I can email that and I'll include this important links and documents thing. I think that I'm going to double check and make sure. I'm pretty sure I sent them a request to be part of the challenge. Just getting a jump start on it. But I'll double check and make sure I followed through and did that after the webinar. All right. So I think we can, unless there's any other questions or comments, I think we can adjourn and hopefully we'll be able to, I don't want to take up so much of your time, but I think we kind of need to have another meeting within a week just to make sure we're staying on task with all these things and see how we are doing with the survey and all that. Is that okay with you guys?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Is that good?
Probably be
Okay.
there.
Okay. So I will put that down. Meeting in a week. All right. So it is 5:03. So I'll make a motion that we adjourn. 5:03.
Dog agrees.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all.
Great
I
day,
appreciate
everybody.
your
Alrighty.
conversation.
Thank you. Bye now.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye.